Hello, I'm Eileen McHugh with the BBC News. The head of the World Health Organization has warned countries not to let their guard down against COVID, despite declaring that the disease is no longer a global health emergency. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the removal of the alert was a moment of celebration. But Catherine Smallwood from the WHO warned that COVID was far from over.
What it does mean is that based on the situation around the world, that the pandemic is no longer putting the immense pressures both on health systems, but also on other parts of society that it was doing in the past. And although a lot of people are still getting COVID-19 and many people on a weekly basis are dying from COVID-19, but not in the same numbers as they were in previous years.
The Sudanese army has sent envoys to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia to discuss a renewed ceasefire with the rival Rapid Support Forces despite continued fighting. The two sides have been fighting for 3 weeks as opposing generals compete for control of the country. Talks are due to take place in Jeddah tomorrow. Our correspondent Paul Adams has the latest.
The Sudanese army says the talks are aimed at addressing the humanitarian aspects of this crisis. In other words, they are not yet political talks. The rival Rapid Support Forces have yet to make any formal announcement, but the Saudi-funded Al Arabiya news channel reported that both sides were sending delegations. If they happen, these will be the first face-to-face talks between the warring parties since this crisis erupted 3 weeks ago. The UN and aid agencies have been calling urgently for such talks to prevent a dire humanitarian situation from getting any worse.
Satellite data collected by the Brazilian government shows deforestation of the vast Cerrado tropical savanna region has reached new record levels. The area of native vegetation cleared from January to April is 15% higher than last year. The region originally covered by the Cerrado biome now produces most of Brazil's cattle and soya beans. Environmentalists have also expressed concern over the latest deforestation figures for Brazil's Amazon region. Wildfires in Western Canada, sparked by unseasonably hot, dry weather, have forced about 13,000 people from their homes. Officials reported more than 70 active forest fires in the worst affected province, Alberta, on Friday, several of them burning out of control. Christy Tucker is from Alberta Wildfire.
We're expecting very warm weather and extremely strong winds, particularly in the northern half of the province. And this will tell you this is not great for wildfire activity. That tends to cause very active wildfires, and our folks on the ground are going to have to be very careful about their own safety and, of course, the safety of the communities that they're protecting.
World News from the BBC. The US government says it's preparing new legislation to deal with an expected surge in illegal migration from next week when emergency regulations introduced during the pandemic expire. The US Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has described the anticipated increase in migration as extremely challenging. He said the new rules would have the dual purpose of dealing with people smugglers and illegal migration.
The border is not open. It has not been open, and it will not be open subsequent to May 11th. And the smugglers who exploit vulnerable migrants are spreading misinformation. They are spreading false information, lies, in a way to lure vulnerable people to the southern border, and those individuals will only be returned.
The authorities in eastern Congo say the number of people known to have died in severe flooding and mudslides has risen to 176. The rainfall in Kalehe territory caused rivers to overflow, destroying homes in 2 villages. The governor of South Kivu province said more people were still missing. A doctor in the nearest hospital said injured survivors had been streaming in since Thursday evening. Mali's military rulers say a referendum on a new constitution will be held in June. It's seen as a key step towards presidential elections next year. Mali has had 2 coups in 3 years. The draft constitution says the head of state and not the government would determine policy and appoint the prime minister and ministers. The US Supreme Court has halted the execution of an Oklahoma death row inmate after the state's Republican Attorney General agreed he should not be executed. Richard Glossip was convicted of arranging the murder of a motel owner in 1997, but officials say he wasn't given a fair trial. The top court will review the case. BBC News.